Subscribe, like, comment and share to support the channel. Thank you for the support. Haps continued to lay on the ground flat. After tasting the wonderful punch from Muscle Mommy, she soon regains consciousness and said it was impossible. She gets up and wonders how there was a human that was stronger than her. She swears that it's impossible and that she was going to kill Muscle Mommy right now, but her eyes widen as she looks at what stood in front of her. Kyamuru was unleashing an ungodly amount of Muscle Mommy energy in front of Haps. Her eyes continued to shine bright, like a diamond in the sky. She towers over Haps as she continues to lay on the ground staring at her. Haps could only think of her actions being useless as her instincts were telling her something. Surrender, you can't win, was written all over her face along with the print of Kyamuru's fist. Muscle Mommy begins her interrogation asking Haps if she knew her younger brother Yukito, as she had just called him weak. Kyamuru glares at her asking what she meant by him being weak, but Haps immediately throws herself towards Kyamuru and hugs her tightly, just like how I imagine most of us would do if we were in the same situation. She starts to call Kyamuru Onee-sama. She cries out to her that she had finally found a person that she could truly respect, so she continues to beg Muscle Mommy for permission to be called Onee-sama. The kids could only look in awe, except for the little girl. She is blind. Haps continues to argue that in this world, strength is everything, as her face is filled with determination and her fist raised high up. She continues to proclaim that Kyamuru was stronger than anyone she knew, and that Haps was willing to follow her for the rest of her life. But Muscle Mommy grabs her by the collar, telling her that she had made fun of her younger brother. This sin is worthy of death. Muscle Mommy looks ready to eat someone up as she continues to glare at Haps. She immediately tells her that about her younger brother Yukito. She started to praise him, saying that she knew he was different from everyone else from the beginning, even going so far to say that he was really shining and has an amazing aura, and that she could even feel the charisma. An amazing god, simply divine, Haps shouts. Kyamuru's face began to break down. A satisfied look came across her face after hearing the many compliments she gave about her younger brother. She lets her go, telling her that she understood it well. She begins to compliment her younger brother as well, saying that he wasn't just charismatic but that his cuteness and loveliness was also divine. She tells Haps that when she sees him, his divinity will blind her. Haps looks at her with a smile and constantly agreed to whatever Muscle Mommy said. But Noru spoke out asking them to wait for a moment. He shouts at them on why Kyamuru was getting along with Haps. He complains to her that she had burned down their village and killed everyone along with it. She had even tried to kill Kyamuru, but Naya pulls onto his sleeve and tells him to wait. She explains to him that the smell of smoke was fading and that it could mean that the fire was out. Noru was surprised to hear this just as a heavy footstep appeared. A group of men holding buckets in their hands appeared while wearing a white long coat with certain characters written on it. Noru was alarmed to see these guys and wondered who they were, and when they came, "OSU," shouted one of the member, "as you ordered we put out all the fire." The group of men shouted together in unison. One of the members continued to report that all the villagers were safe. Noru continues to be stunned just as a hand appears calling out to him. A group of villagers appear from amongst the ruins of their burnt village. They called out to Noru and Naya, asking them if they were okay since the fire was put out. They told the little kids that almost no one was hurt and that they were all right. Noru began to tear up upon seeing that his fellow villagers were doing okay. A heavy footstep appears once again with an order to listen. Haps shouts at the top of her lungs, "We, Olympus, submit to this lady." She orders her men to follow Muscle Mommy. She then declares that if anyone has any complaints, then they should step forward. But none of the men stood forward as they held their positions. "All right," Haps shouted. "From today on, Muscle Mommy is our new leader," she proclaimed. The group of men bowed their heads towards Muscle Mommy, telling her to treat them well. They began to chant her name out loud. "Muscle Mommy, Muscle Mommy, comment below Muscle Mommy." Kyamuru holds a smile on her face as the group continues to chant her name loudly. She then decides to pull something out. "Look at this," she said as she held a photo of her younger brother sleeping when he was a kid. She tells them with an excited look on her face that this was Yukito, her beloved younger brother, whom they should worship. The group rejoiced together upon seeing the photo. "Yukito-sama Banzai, Yukito-sama Banzai." They continued to chant. The members began to call him their savior, a shining star of hope with divine charismatic. Noru and Naya could only watch silently in the background as they wondered what was going on, but Noru was still confused by something as he yells at them. He questions them about the reason why they saved the village even though they were the ones that attacked it in the first place. Haps hears this and decides to answer him. She tells her that in order to get followers, she needed to do this. Muscle Mommy was curious about the followers and asks her to explain. Haps tells her that formerly this country was ruled by an emperor and a parliament in the imperial capital, and that was when her young brother appeared suddenly like a comet. Then all of a sudden the emperor was crushed all at once. Kyamuru was impressed to hear this news. She nods her head slightly as she tells them that it was expected of her Yukito to be able to take the king's head all by himself, and because of that, after the emperor's death, to become the strongest soldier in the country. The archons have begun to fight for power in various places. Haps tells her that she was one of them, but Kyamuru interrupts her by saying that she was a bit weak. Haps tells her that wouldn't have lost against anyone else but her. She continues to explain that an archon's power grows with the number of followers, so the archon desperately created a cult and started to gather followers. Her members once again rejoiced out loud that they were her followers. They shouted out that they follow those who they admire and respect, so they decided to follow Haps. Kyamuru began to think about what Haps said. She realized that in this country there is an internal conflict for power between religious groups. "Screw you, for such a selfish reason," shouted Noru. He tells them with a fierce voice that attacking a village and setting it on fire was unacceptable. Haps shrugs him off and asks him if he was with Muscle Mommy. Noru tells her that he wasn't, but before they could start fighting it out, Muscle Mommy tells them to wait a minute. She tells them that the reason behind everything was because of her younger brother. She closes her eyes and informs them that it was the sister's job to clean up her brother's mess. "But if it's cute Yukito's butt, I'll lick it up instead of wiping it." Muscle Mommy says these words as her mouth begun to drool upon thinking about it. Once again, I repeat, this is what the author wrote, not me. Licking, 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 she repeated, every inch of it, before giving off a creepy laugh. This is what the author wrote. Everyone continued to stare in silence upon hearing those words. Noru started to sweat as he wondered what he mean by that. Muscle Mommy grips her hand tightly, telling them that she finally knows what to do. She will smash all the archons and unite this country, she said with a lustful and drooling look on her face. Noru was shocked to hear that, but Kyamuru continues to talk about when her younger brother would become the ruler. He will create a law that brother and sister must become husband and wife. Once again, I repeat, author wrote this, not voice of Manhwa. Her face blushes heavily as she drools over the thought of Yukito and her getting married. An image of Muscle Mommy in a wedding dress carrying her younger brother in princess style came up in her mind. Noru was too stunned to speak as every hole on his face opened wide with a shock expression. But Haps and her followers simply rejoiced out loud and cheered Kyamuru on with her vision, saying let's do it. They began to chant her name out loud as she stood still. Noru continued to watch from the back in silence, but he soon realizes that he was getting tired of this. He tells them to do as they pleased and informs Naya that they should go home. But a hand touches his shoulder and tells him to wait. Kyamuru tells him that she needed him to do something which will be fun. Noru was nervous about what she wanted him to do. A few days later, a simple cottage house is seen in the lands. Two little girls could be seen together on the floor. Two other girls appear and are watching closely to what they were doing. The pair of hands on the legs started to glow brightly. Naya lets out a deep breath and tells them with a smile on her face that she was fine now and that the wound is healed. The red-haired girl was surprised to see that the burns she had that were so bad was finally healed and back to normal. She hugs Naya to thank her and tells her that she loves her. But Naya tells her that she couldn't accept this since everyone in the village had helped her since she was blind. But the girls cheered her up by that, saying that being able to heal injuries was amazing. They continued to praise her for having such incredible powers and wondered how Naya was able to do it, as it was a mystery. They then changed the topic to Noru. They asked Naya where he was. Naya informs them that Noru seemed busy these days and was often away from home. The girls couldn't believe it and wondered if he was having an affair. But a girl said that it was impossible. It was because Noru was in love with Naya. The other girls agreed, but Naya was hesitant about it. But they continued to tell her that she might never know it. She explains to the group of girls that they say that men think with the lower half of the body, since it was written in a forbidden book. The girls began to ponder about the words lower half. Naya hears this and remains silent before calling up to the girls. Please take me now to where Kyamuru-san is, she said. Noru, good luck boy. Muscle Mommy could be seen gathering a bunch of men together. The other men continued to stare at her. Hey, you bastards, she shouted at them. Are you sure you want to keep living like this? She shouted as she continued to stand firm in front of them. She continued to ask them questions about whether they were really satisfied with their current life of oppression, and if they wanted power. but the villagers told her that they weren't, but Muscle Mommy ignores their opinions, shouting at them that she was going to transform them stupids into the most powerful fighting force in the world. She tells them that they were going to begin training. The first thing was to unify everyone's hearts and minds. She proceeds to tell them to shout with her, the best, little brother. Noru could be seen with a group of men dressed the same. They raised their wooden poles and chanted after Muscle Mommy, the best, little brother. The girl group could only stare at Noru and the men group as they continued to chant together, the best, little brother. Naya looked concerned as she wondered what this was. A mysterious person appeared in the village the other day. It was Kyamuru-san. Naya didn't have any particular reason for it, but she had a feeling that she can change something. A suffocating feeling. With a raised fist, Muscle Mommy tells them that they will destroy all archons and control the imperial city. In other words, let's conquer this country. She yells at more men equipped with spears appeared in uniform positions behind her. She continues to shout out to the heavens, if you want power, follow me. I'll make you the strongest fighting group. But the group of villagers just stood still. They whispered amongst themselves about how the imperial city is under control, and about the archons who were the ones who burned down the village the other day. They thought it was impossible for them to beat the archons and wondered what Kyamuru was thinking about. But somebody steps forward in the crowd. It was Naya. She looks up to Kyamuru and questions her about whether she had any idea about what she was doing fighting an archon. Muscle Mommy looks at her and soon realizes who Naya was. She tells her that she was going to find out soon. She sends a command out, ordering all of them to get in position. "Ha!" shouted the group of men as they moved quick. Noru led the group as they talked about how it was time to demonstrate what they've been training for. Noru looks to the sidelines and tells Naya to watch him and what he could do. I think our boy forgot that Naya was blind. Awkward. Naya was nervous but agrees to it. Noru gets amped up as he wanted to show Naya his cool side. His eyes began to twitch widely and his face was blushed as he began to think about how this was the perfect opportunity to make her think. Noru is so cool. Shields were then slammed down onto the ground. Muscle Mommy was satisfied with this. She stands in front of the group of men, positioned uniformly and with shields in front of them. She then orders them to have a mock battle, and called for Haps. A familiar foot appears in front of us. Haps had appeared on the battleground alongside with her followers. She smiles as she giggles Kyamuru's name with joy. The group of men grew nervous upon the sight of Haps as she asked Muscle Mommy permission to do as she pleased. Kyamuru smiles and tells her she didn't care, but instead should give it everything she got. The men started to grow nervous and panicky upon hearing those exchange of words between them. Good. It's Onee-sama's order. She shouted at her men, all of you, crush them, do it. She orders as she yells. Her band of merry brothers shouted in joy and began to rush forward to crush the other group. The villagers began to panic as they witnessed the sight of Haps' group rushing towards them. They asked one another about what they should do and that Haps' group would kill them if they did nothing. Noru tells everyone to calm down and to do what they were trained to do. The men agreed with Noru's words and tells each other to get ready. Soon enough, the shields they each held were slammed against one another, creating a massive wall of protection for the group of villagers. They kneeled behind the newly formed shields, waiting for the upcoming attacks. Haps' followers laugh at the villagers' combination of wooden shields, asking them if they thought they could stop them with that. A smile grows on one of their faces as they shouted that they would destroy that. With force, they shouted. Once they slammed their bodies against the combination of wooden shields. Aura, aura, aura. They yelled continuously as they attacked the wooden shields non-stop. The villagers could barely hold on against the attacks before a hand is raised in the air. Muscle Mommy appears and issues a new command, spear posture. She yelled out. Noru and others could be seen following the command immediately. Spears poked out from in between the combination of wooden shields. Haps' men were surprised to see this and wondered what this was. They were shocked to see that the spears were coming out from the gaps in the shields, one after another. Haps' men yelled out that they couldn't get any closer as the villagers continued to poke them with their spears. Muscle Mommy then issues a new command, V-shaped battle formation. The villagers agreed immediately and started to change their formations. Kyamuru commentated that real wars are fought with weapons. However, the one who knows how to use the weapons better wins. The villagers had managed to successfully form a barricade made up of their wooden shields to corner Haps and her group into the middle. Haps' followers were alarmed to realize that the villagers were actually pretty tough to deal with. Haps wore an annoyed expression on her face due to her situation. She lets out a fiery explosion that causes her allies to jump out of the way due to its hotness. She smirks and tells her troops that she was enough to beat the group of villagers. She continues to show off her flaming powers in front of the villager group. The villagers could only stare with their mouths wide open. They argued with one another about what to do as Haps came closer to them. Kyamuru begins to speak out about being on the battlefield. She asks the crowd from before about what was the most effective weapon, a sword, a spear, a shovel. The answer is, the flashback ends as Haps shouts at the villagers, telling them that she was going to turn all of them into charcoal, but something quick speeds through the air. An arrow had landed directly into the forehead of Haps. A look of confusion came over her as she was stunned about what was going on right now. Even her group of followers were shocked to witness what just happened. Silence fell upon the battlefield as everyone was too stunned to speak. Her followers began to crowd around her, slowly calling out her name. Kyamuru announces that the most powerful weapon on the battlefield is always a flying one. Just as a female ninja with two big reasons to like her appears, hiding in the trees with a bow drawn, everyone on the battlefield looked up to the female ninja and stared at her in silence. Muscle Mommy explains to them that if the arrow was real, Haps would have been dead, so the result was a victory for the villagers' team. The villagers rejoiced with pride upon hearing the results, while Haps couldn't believe it. She throws the arrow down and started to curse. Shit, shit, shit. She yells as she stomps her foot repeatedly onto the arrow. The villagers who were watching were speechless, but they soon realized something even though they couldn't understand it very well. But under Kyamuru's guidance, simple villagers were able to defeat an archon. Night soon arrives in the world. So, what did you think, Naya? Shouted a voice from inside of a house. Noru tells her that they had defeated an archon as his face was filled with excitement, but Naya was hesitating to reply him. Afterwards she tells him that she couldn't really understand what he was doing. This shocks Noru, but he soon realizes Naya was right as she literally couldn't see anything. Naya went to comfort Noru as Kyamuru asked him if his stomach hurts. Haps stood at attention and wanted to ask her something. She asks her if it was okay to pretend to lose like that. Muscle Mommy tells her that it was alright and that she did a good job. Noru was shocked to hear that. He questions them about whether the entire fight was an act. Kyamuru tells him that it was. She tells Noru that even though Haps' group was weak, they wouldn't have lost against the villagers. Haps agrees with her. Noru drops to his knees and was sad over this fact. He had really believed that they had beaten an archon, but Kyamuru tells him that it was possible. This piques his interest as he looks up. She tells him that they didn't have enough time, but with a real armed force, they can win. She explains to him that where he came from, someone who could shoot flames out of the hand would be killed in an instant. An image of a man holding the power of America is seen blasting Haps' head. Haps was alarmed to hear this. She questions Muscle Mommy if this was true. Naya started to speak out as well. She asks her if she could become stronger too, strong enough to not be defeated by the archons. Of course, said Muscle Mommy, miracles are created by force. She says with a look of confidence in her eye and a smile on her face. The sun rises on a new day. A nice-looking Japanese's temple is seen. A group of muscular men with masks are seen kneeling on the ground. Who, said a voice from some sweet lips. A new mommy appears. This was the archon called Kama/Mara. She asks her followers if Hephaestus was defeated by humans. She tells her followers that after all, someone with the name of a lower god is insignificant. She proclaims herself as the Mao, who will control the empire. Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.